All right. So we're here today to talk about the Substance Consortium, and Michael and Oliver are going to do a short presentation. My name's Adam Hyde. I'm here just to do a very quick introduction, and so I wanted to say a few words about what Substance is, and also note that this is intended to be the beginning of the creation of a consortium to help support their efforts and to work together to produce great editing products. And so the consortium was first of all conceptualized by PKP and Erudite and Coco and Substance together in Montreal. And we have Juan Pablo Alperin here from PKP, Kristen Rattan here from Coco, and of course the Substance chaps, and I believe Tanya or Davin might also be here from Erudite. So just a note before they take over. I think the important thing about what Substance are doing is that we have for a long time lived with editing widgets online for creating content, and these are kind of very poor editing environments that you inherit from other developers, things like TinyMCE or CK Editor, this kind of thing, Aloha. Now these are great softwares, and they did us proud for a very long time. But as more people need to create more sophisticated content online, we need much more from the editors than what they offer. And the genius about Substance is that instead of building another widget, they've developed a library that enables anyone online to build really sophisticated editors and content production environments. And this is really important because there is a real diversity of use cases for this now, from publishing to creating research online and collaborating together to produce knowledge. So we can now do this thanks to them. And as it turns out, it's actually, if we didn't have them, it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to build custom editors, because there are so many things that you have to know, and so many things you would have to build over and over again. And Michael and Oliver, they know this area inside out, and so they've done all that hard work for us. They've looked after all the little micro interactions that you need in order to create content online. They've looked after concurrency. They've looked after all the special needs that content has in a page and how you can change it. And it's very special. They spend a lot of time. It's a passionate project to do this, and they've done an extremely good job, and we can all benefit from that. So they'll show a lot of products and use cases, which is tremendously exciting. But the important thing to know is that they've enabled these through producing this under the hood library, and that's amazing. Anyway, so I'll hand it over to them.
So, hello everyone.
Hello.
That's Michael and Oliver from Substance. Thank you, Adam, for this intro. We're just gonna.
Yeah. Let me first emphasize that the audience is invited to ask questions via the chat that should show up on the right side of your Hangout viewer. So you enter questions, Kristen is taking care of them and passing them over to us at the right time. So please ask questions as they occur.
Great. So basically, we just want to show you like a little bit. Some of you may know Substance already. We just show you quickly through some projects and use cases that we've built. So what can I do with Substance? Basically, Substance is a JavaScript library to create custom tools for content production and presentation. And modularity is very important. So we built a large project which was started 2 years ago and lasted for 1 year, which is called Archivist. And we did that together with Daniel Beilenson and the Memorial Germany. This is Daniel. So the task was basically, there was a series of interviews, like audio recordings and video recordings, and we needed software to digitalize all these materials, which are very long, few hours each, and about 50 interviews. And the challenge was to put that into like text and annotate it extensively so that you can tag locations and persons and subjects in the text, and then be able later on to make a presentation, like it's all like to publish those documents and to make them accessible for researchers and historians, so they can actually search for like a location, and then it will show up all the interviews related to that location. It will point you even to the places where the location is mentioned, among many, many other things. It was a great project. The next one I want to show is called Stenciller, which was created by Nokomi Bentley. And so that is us after our first working together. That's just one aspect of Stenciller, but a very great one. It's the Stenciller sheet editor, and it looks pretty much like an Excel interface, and it has the same interactions. But the special thing about it is that each cell is basically an R expression, so you can do like lots of interesting statistical computations with it, and like render graphs and stuff like that. So it's a really powerful tool, but that is usually programmed. But with this kind of interface, it makes it more accessible for like less technically versed people or programmers. Here's another example which shows explorable documents, something that has been introduced by Brett Victor a couple of years ago already. And it's all about this idea of, now that we have the web, how can we make documents more interactive and like put life into documents, essentially. And in this case, we're talking about climate change. He's talking about climate change and just emphasizing that with some numbers. And not only there are numbers in the text, you can interact with them. And you can see how those numbers are computed. And while this concept is already there, as said by Brett Victor, we took this one level further and created the authoring stage of such documents, like making this easy to author, actually. Yeah, that's a very new thing that we just implemented a couple of days ago. We worked with like Swedish-Danish company called Infomaker, and so that was our workshop in Vienna. And they wanted a tool for their clients, which are like news publishers in Scandinavia, that provides a news authoring environment that is extensible through plugins. And one of those plugins is shown in this screenshot here, which is a stock ticker item that one client of them needed. And they were able to do this with some custom Substance components and yeah, creating a newswriter interface. And it's already used in production as far as I've heard. So we did a beta release just last week, which is beta number 4, and it brings real-time collaboration. So you can all do all those kind of things that you used to do with Google Docs, except this works for all the editors that you're building. So it's independent of which Substance editor is utilized. That's just working with the underlying data concepts and just enables real-time for all Substance editors. So here's a like little featured grid of things that Substance supports now. So first is inserting content in the flowing text. We call that inline elements. You can specify your custom macros, like say you want to have a star and space, and this should be turned into a list. So that's possible. You can utilize the predefined table package, or you can implement your own if you want different interactions. It's very easy now that you can embed third-party components, like components that have not been implemented within Substance, like for instance a code editor, and it will just work within the text flow. And it can be navigated and selected and deleted and all that kind of stuff. So form editors is another example that's useful for many use cases. For instance, if you want to create metadata editors in combination with free-form text. Yeah, and you can, of course, insert medias like image and videos. That's all supported too.
Okay.
So
let's maybe, are there any questions in the audience? So I didn't see anything coming up. Christian, nothing there, right? Okay.
all right.
So we just continue.
Mm-hmm. So we started this consortium in April, and most people involved currently are interested in the scientific publishing workflow, like getting better tools for it because it can get really painful. So there are different stages so that we look at, and nothing is final. It's just developing that. So authoring and reviewing. What you see here is a like paper authoring interface that's just reduced to what we think you need, like as a scientist, as an author. So what you can do is reference bibliographic entries and have like a bibliography generated automatically. So you don't need to take care about the labeling and updating things. That's all done automatically for you, as well as like a table of contents. And it's similar to Microsoft Word interface, but it's not giving you the ability to format things and giving you too many options, so you can just focus on the writing part. Yeah, many things are just ideas, like this one is just one possible interface for like co-authoring or like working together with a colleague on a text, and you can select or like highlight certain things there. You can add comments. You can put some to-do items there, which you can check, and after they are checked, they are just tracked, like how many things are left. Yeah, that's just like one option that can be combined with other UI elements as well. So this is like the most concrete use case that we have so far. So visual XML editing is something everybody that we've talked to really needs. So editing XML files is slow and tedious and error prone, and the visual interface would help much. So the motivation for this is basically usually it starts from a Word file, from a Word submission, which then gets converted into XML, usually the chats file format. And often things are just not recognized correctly. So you may have a bold text, which is actually a section, and so you need to fix that. Or you get a figure with a caption, but it should actually be like a real figure element with a caption element inside. So you need to fix that as well. So what we're coming up with is an interface, like a visual interface that just works with the XML directly. And you can see that in the header bar here, that we are inside of a subsection and a paragraph, and we are editing an xref tag. That's a tag that is in the chat specification. And as we change that, things get written to the XML file. And what is important here is that all the attributes are accessible, because like publishers tag things in different ways, and we just don't want to limit them in any way. So this interface is more complex than the authoring interface that we've shown, but it's also like it's a pro tool for publishers. So in this example, yeah, like a cross-reference is edited, and we have another example here where a bibliographic entry is modified, and you can, for instance, directly edit the XML, or you can provide special forums for editing bibliographic entries.
Okay, wait. There's a question, obviously. Okay.
Yeah, there's
Oops.
sorry about that. Yeah, there's a question, is this for organizations to release their own findings in an open way on the web, or do journal publishing companies use these tools?
I think it's both of them, I think. So for sure the second one, so publishing companies are invited to use those free and commonly shared tools. And obviously also the outcome could be open access and free. What do you think, Adam?
Actually, I got a little bit of feedback and I missed that. But so the question was about publishing, right? So the thing is that these tools, the Substance libraries can enable you to build the kind of content production environments that you want. So you have a choice here of if you wish to build something for the author, you can build something for the author. But if you have a need for a QA interface where you need to QA what the author has done, then you can have a more sophisticated interface for doing that, which would allow you to check the structure of the document and things like this. And the nice thing about it is that because you're sharing the same file format, you can actually have different people working on the same content through different interfaces. And that's incredibly important because you want to be able to have a fluid transition between the author and the publisher. So you want the author to be able to change things, the publisher change things, go back to the author changes things, and you're not importing, exporting, or emailing binary formats around. You're doing it all through the single environment, but you have different tools for your specific needs, and that's critically important.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. There's another question, like how does an author insert refs in the first place? So there will be tools for that. I mean, this like XML editor is currently under development, but we want to, of course, like creating new references is something that should be supported in that stage. There may be some things like structural reorganizations which are easier to be done in an author mode, but of course we also want to incorporate that into the...
I think the idea is that there are going to be a plugin which can be used in the authoring tool as well as the XML editing tool, which is just connecting maybe to a service in the backend, getting data from reference managers. So yeah, there are going to be plugins to do that. So, yep.
If I could just jump in for 1 second here, I think one of the things that, which I think has kind of been said, but I think it's important to make very clear for everyone that's listening, is that all of these things that Michael and Oliver are presenting, these are all sort of components and pieces of things that can be done using the Substance library. And then it's the places where it gets used and the ways that it gets used, it really depends on the people that want to take up the tools. And because everything that they're producing is open source, it can easily be expanded upon and built upon. And the idea is that then it can be integrated into whatever either production or reading environment or quality assurance environment, whatever it is that whatever organization decides to take this up. And PKP and COCO and RDs have our particular use cases that we can talk about in a little bit, but everyone else that's listening should be thinking about, what are ways in which tools like these could be integrated into whatever your needs and whatever the mission of your organizations are.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue to finish in time. Okay.
All right. So where did we stop? Yeah, the tools. So there's just one part left, which is like the reading part, and most of you may know like Eli's Lens. That's a project we worked on a few years ago, and which was very well received. It's another way of like a component that's open source, that's there, and that can, like, publishers can choose to use it either as an alternative to their primary publishing format, or make it their primary format. And we're just as part of the consortium developing also those reader tools further.
Okay.
So yeah, that's from my side.
So I take over here. So what we see is a great diversity of ideas for a diversity of problems and requirements. And our solution to that is that we use Substance, which is inherently modular and flexible, and together with a great degree of share and reuse. So we want to tackle this diversity problem. So our proposal is to provide a set of tools for browser-based publishing. And the idea is that many of the tools and components can be shared and adapt easily to fulfill specific needs. So we think about a collection of components. It could look like this. There could be a package dedicated to the JETS conversion, the JETS editor we were talking about, an authoring tool, for example, also a reviewing tool, and maybe something like a reader. For all those components, you could think also about alternatives, for example, having an HTML-based conversion pipeline, and maybe a different custom reader you build on top of the built-in reader or already existing readers. So there are many ways to create custom tools or extend tools. Let's look at some of the use cases, exemplary use cases, and how they would need or use those components. Yeah, the basic idea is you just use what you need and adapt it to your needs. So, for example, the PubSuite Science Blogger, which is a component of the PubSuite platform, a component which is used to create simple scientific blog posts. So it's basically from the interface, it's the authoring tool. Itself, it wants to use a different data exchange format. So it might not use JETS forever, but maybe HTML format, scholarly HTML or something like this. And it also may want to have a very reduced and simplistic way of presenting the content, created content. So having a HTML view, not using the lens reader component, for example. So here we see there's a lot of a degree of freedom necessary to fulfill those needs, and we want to make sure that this is possible. The other thing, maybe Juan, you can just jump in afterwards. So for open journal systems, for example, we have the current use case that they have the Microsoft Word conversion to JETS. And this is error-prone, this conversion, as Michael showed in the ideas section before. And they want to have a JETS editor to fix those things right away after conversion. And of course, in the future, there might be more interesting components for them as well. Juan, your turn.
Yeah, I could say a little bit more about that, and as well as so in the short term, PKPCs, this is one of the areas where we are for sure going to be using the the Substance editor and in particular the JATS-based editor, because we've been working for quite a while on a tool to convert author manuscripts from the Word versions they submit to the journals into XML. But of course, there's a certain degree of error and things that go wrong in that conversion process. And so the idea is to provide a web-based editor that then can be used either by authors or editors to be able to make the corrections that are necessary to make sure that that XML is published sort of production quality, ready to go out and be released. In the longer term, we also see ourselves using a next sort of document-centric workflow as part of what goes into OJS and OMP, and Open Monograph Press and Open Journal Systems. And so that's a longer-term goal for us in terms, once we are starting to see that publishers can be using XML-based, can actually get XML quality that's ready to be used, we can start then using that as part of what goes into the entire submission system and having peer review happen right on top of those documents, as well as the editing, copy editing, and so on, all be based directly on the XML. That's a longer term goal, but again, we're starting with trying to see if we can use the tools to get the quality of that XML to be ready to be released and have it be the version of record.
Okay, cool, thank you. So the next use case, we have been working together with the American Mathematical Society, AMS, to extend the lens view for mathematical content, so adding math environments and dedicated views for math content to Lens. And they are also having a custom content production pipeline where they start with LaTeX and convert it into JATS. And this obviously needs the same JATS conversion components as the other use cases. And finally, the result is basically presented in Lens, and there is no need for an extra editor. Maybe the JATS editor is also helpful for them at a certain point, but they need the authoring tool or rendering tool. Anything?
Just a question about
a question?
Monographs using JATS also. So is there a sister XML standard for monographs? I don't know personally. There may be. I mean, I guess that you can represent monographs in JATS as well. But that's only, I guess, about being an expert.
Okay, me neither. Let's move on. It's a fine word.
I could just very quickly speak to that question about the XML. I think the point here is not to think about what Substance is offering as a platform or a hard-boiled solution. That they're providing libraries through which you can build the content production interfaces that you require. So if you wish to have a monograph system that supports your particular variety of XML, then it's entirely possible for you to do that. You don't have to go with JATS, you don't have to go with HTML. You can choose the document source format that you need and that you want. So if you have legacy systems that have specific XML, then you can build content production environments to work with that format.
Thank you. Regarding AMS, yes, they use LaTeX as a authoring format, and but before they publish it, they turn it into JATS. So they go from LaTeX also through their own conversion chain to JATS.
Maybe they have other pipelines we don't know.
Yeah, but that's the big view on it, I think, and that way they can use the Lens viewer, which is on top of JATS, and what we've done is just developing some extensions to Lens to show math environments.
Yeah.
Like that.
For me, the interesting point here is that basically there's a share of components possible. So everybody needs this full JATS compliant conversion components, and it doesn't matter if you want to create an editor out of it. It's already helpful if you just want to present it with using Lens. So we were having troubles in the past because Lens was just a prototype and the converters were they were not complete, and so it was sometimes difficult to cover all the cases we found in XML files. And And this is now addressed in a more complete and proper way. Okay. So maybe let's move on. Or
yeah, there's just one more question regarding the native format of Substance. Yes, there is, and it's basically like an in-memory JavaScript representation. So the Substance API provides document manipulation like on JavaScript level, like in the browser. And you don't need to use any like serialization, like XML, HTML, etc. It's just very compatible with those kind of serializations, and they often make sense.
Sure. So the next use case, as we have seen before, Sensilla is also using the Substance, and Sensilla or Nokomi is considering to have also chat support, so that you can create chats at least. Sensilla has its own platform and its own authoring interface, its own custom reader, but it could create chats and you could submit it to a publisher, for example, creating something in Sensilla and submit it right away to a publisher or something in the future. Science Fair is just a different use case. Science Fair is basically a desktop application which is using Electron to embed eLife at the moment. And what they do is they crawl chats files from the publisher's sites, download it to the local file system, to the user, and then display them for offline reading in that desktop application. So here again, similar to the AMS use case, we have the full chats converter components, plus the lens reader, for example, or something which is based on the lens reader. Okay, that's it from our side.
Adam, you want to take over?
Yeah, so that was a great presentation of the power of what has been achieved with Substance. And I think, once again, it's important to realize that you can work with those editors that they've shown or the readers, but you can also build your own solution for your very specific needs. And so the consortium is very much about this. I mean, the small group of people that have come together to form this initially really believe that we need Substance, that there needs to be sophisticated libraries out there to build the content production environments that we need. And so it's not just that we need this, but we recognize that the web needs this, because the state of affairs at the moment is largely you use file formats which are not native to the web, such as Microsoft Word, or you use VisiVig editors or somewhere in between. And we need to be able to produce sophisticated, native, web-based production environments. So the web needs Substance. This is really missing from the internet at the moment. And the internet is becoming more and more a place for content production as well as distribution. So the web needs Substance, and we need Substance. And the consortium exists so that we can bring people together around this project Substance. So the idea is to build a community around Substance. It's an open source project. Michael and Oliver have been working for years getting this right. They've done an extremely good job. It's the best that there is to offer anywhere. And the idea is to bring people together to help support them. So in the first instance, to help them be sustainable, and the second instance to also build shared products together, right? So that there's shared effort. So the idea is that, for example, there's the science writer. The name is still under discussion, but this is a production environment that you could use in research and scientific publishing workflows. And so there are shared needs around that kind of editor. And so if we could bring a lot of people together that have that need and collaboratively develop a roadmap together, and then we can also share the effort in building this out. And so this would also include not just publishers, for example, but also people, organizations that exist in this ecosystem that offer services like Crossref. It would be great to have Crossref at that table, or any number of other service providers out there, because you can easily see how their services could be built into the production environments, into the authoring environments. So this is very important, to bring us all together to design these products together, to share the effort like an open source project, and rather than us building it time and time and time again in isolation. So it's the idea is the consortium is to build shared products, to share the effort in building those products, and to look at sustainability of Substance. How can we ensure that Michael and Oliver can keep doing what they do, which is to be an inspiration to all of us, and get so that we can draw from them on the nitty-gritty nuances of what content production environments need to understand that better. But also to so in order for them to do that, they need to have some money in the bank. So the consortium is also about this. How can we work with Substance to ensure their continued sustainability? So the idea is to, we want to get as many people together. Doesn't matter if you consider yourselves to be competition with each other, to do this in a very fair, inclusive way, the way that you build online open source communities. And to the first meeting would be in Montreal in July 26 and 27. And you can find more information about that at substance.io/consortium. Are there any questions? Okay, no questions? Anything that anyone else wishes to add? Kristen or Juan or Michael and Oliver?
No, just to there's the information on the page. There's also the mailing list that's been set up. That's something that I think we can use to communicate amongst people that have joined. And if you have any interest, and that's another place to continue the conversation ahead of the meeting in July. But that we hope that a lot of people can come to that and take part of the conversation and help shape this consortium as well as support it.
So there's a question about licensing. Michael and Oliver, do you want to say what license the libraries have?
At the moment, we have MIT license, and I think it will stay like this because we don't want to introduce barriers for others to integrate.
And I think the idea of the consortium is to build shared products under open source licenses, and each group that has an interest in a product can decide that for themselves. So, for example, MIT.
I would like to just add that one of the goals of the consortium is to create a lasting library that can be used and a governance structure for how we can keep that in perpetuity. So the MIT license, which is a great open source license, is one step in that direction. But what you also want to make sure is that it's locked open, remains open and available to people over time. So if you're building products using either the library or you're taking a fully formed editor that Substance has built or Lens and utilizing that in your own publishing platform or your own environment, the ideal state, of course, is that you know exactly what the governance structure of that code is, how it's going to be archived and used, and have contingency plans in case Substance moves on and does something else. How do we all ensure that that code base remains available and active? And so that's one of the goals that we have at COCO is helping to form that kind of reliability plan, if you will.
Great, thank you. I mean, basically, like if there are more questions or, I don't know, just approach us and send us an email, like at info@substance.io.
Or use the mailing list of the consortium.
Use the mailing list if it's a public question, yeah. And we are planning to do another webinar. It's not clear yet when it will happen, but we want to do that regularly just to, just keep everyone updated and show latest progress and also see what the questions are and if somebody wants to join and what the connections are.
There's a question, where's a good place to start as a developer? What's a good place to start? Do you start with the notes application or the examples?
The examples show the simplicity, because usually you would start with the most simple editor, which is just a one-column thing having a toolbar in the top, and that's just very easy, as you can see from the examples. And then you can add tools and custom nodes very quickly. And this is demonstrated in the example. So we have a variety of very reduced and dedicated examples. I think that's where you would start.
I actually have a question. What do you think is like the hardest thing about that you've had to solve when developing an abstracted library for producing, you know, such a diverse range of content production environments?
I think it's hard to answer this question because we were eating our own dog food all the time. So over the last 5 years, we were using our own tools, and the difficulties, there were many of them on this road, and some of them were just basically the extensibility, the making the whole thing modular. That's a very huge challenge. I think it's not even the biggest thing to have a real-time collaboration. So the whole OT thing is kind of not the most difficult part, actually. It's maybe from the algorithmic point of view, but not architectural. It's not the most difficult thing. So having a good way to make a data model extensible, to create extensible converters, to create extensible UIs, and that's the biggest thing, I think.
Maybe mapping selections.
Yeah, of course. You know, I call it the content editable dance because you need to. It's like a tango with the content editable if you want to use it. So yeah, that's what everybody is struggling with, and we introduced from the beginning. We went down a route where we used a model-based approach, so not using the content editable as a model, but having our own model and just using the browser as a renderer. And doing this is maybe also an inherent challenge.
So I think that's an important point, because part of your approach is that, in a way, the file format doesn't matter. You know, can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, why that is so that people could use JATS, or they could use the source file format of HTML or whatever. I think that's a very powerful offering.
Yeah, that's the idea is that you always have abstraction. So you have a data model for the in-memory presentation, and it doesn't matter from where you get to that memory presentation. So if you have a Substance editor, it will know how to, or it has its own way to describe what a paragraph is or what a section is. And what you try is going from JATS and map into that representation. But you can do the same from HTML. So you have one internal data presentation and use it from several sources.
So correct me if I have this wrong, but as I understand it, like the edit surface in the browser where you're actually typing is more or less, you count that as a input-output device, and then you're mapping that onto your own data model, and you have strict control of that, and then that data model also then maps onto the target format of your choice.
Exactly.
So you're separating it like this, and so it enables you to have total control of the source file format being produced from the interactions.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what it is. So that's also misleading when other people say they are editing HTML. Usually they don't even. I mean, just there are some big editors out there which are claiming to do so, but they aren't. They also have in-memory presentation, but they are using the content, the DOM, the browser as a owner of the model, basically. So they are reading from that and converting into their in-memory model. And what we do is just taking the user events from the browser. So when a user presses a key or clicks with the mouse, does a selection, then we map it to our model and apply the changes accordingly. And then update the browser again, so that the next change you do in the browser is considering the new update, and at the same time you can send this change over to a server and do that collaboration, a real-time collaboration.
So we have two questions about the current API, the current JavaScript libraries. They're at beta 4 at the moment. how stable do you think the beta 4 is, and when do you expect to have a stable final 1.0?
So beta 4 was a feature release. We would say we added a lot of features, and every time you do that, you introduce instability, right? So the next release will be beta 5. It's dedicated to fixing things and stabilize the whole thing. Overall, I think beta 4 is pretty stable. Others are using it already, but we introduced some regressions, and they will be cleaned up by end of July. And our aim to reach Substance 1.0 is after that beta 5. So basically beta 5 is fixing the things, stabilizing the things, and for 1.0 we need documentation. That's
documentation and just like being really sure that everything works smoothly. So we don't want to really give a time and then maybe not succeed with holding that deadline. But I don't know. I think this year is definitely possible, and I think we can even reach it by fall.
It depends on what you call Substance 1.0. I think we can call it maybe by end of August, because I think it's stable enough.
Okay.
We won't add more features after beta 5. I think we have everything what we need to achieve all the things we have in mind.
So do you expect any big changes if someone was to start very simple development on beta 4? Are they going to expect, is it really a moving target? Or?
I think no, there shouldn't be too many moving things like on the top level, like on the API level. There's not going to be like a lot of changes, maybe some name polish, but that would just mean you rename some.
I think API-wise, beta 4 is stable, so it's just not there are bugs. But API-wise, we introduced everything and want to keep it stable. And yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if there's any other questions. If anybody has them, they can put them in there. We still have like 10 minutes or so. Maybe one question to you guys. I mean, why do you do this? What's interesting to you about this?
I don't know. Like in the beginning, I was just not satisfied like how. Basically, content production on the web works. So, I mean, generally, every web application has kind of like content input in many different ways. You have input fields, you have text areas, and all the apps are built like that. And on the other side, we had like markup formats like Markdown, which is great for coders. But I sort of like, I don't know exactly, but like about 6 years ago, 5.5, I started this just knowing that it can be done like in what you see is what you get way, what people are used from Word can also be done in web applications, and not just like a Word interface, like a flowing text, but like any text input or text area could actually take annotations, and it should be simple to do that.
And for me, it's I take a position that is also was promoted by Brett Victor in one of his talks. So inventing on principle. We think that those tools need to be open, and it should be super easy for you to create something like Google Docs or something. You know, it's very convenient to have those things in the web and being able to collaborate. But what we don't like is that it is all proprietary, and inventing something for others so that others can create open tools is our mission, I would say. So that's the idealistic part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a great note to end on, unless there's any further questions from, I mean, I think Dane said that they're using, this is for the newswriter, I believe, right? They use the beta 3, and they've got 300 to 400 daily users, which is amazing. And that's on the beta 3, so even the release before beta 4, and it sounds like it's stable. So that's kind of incredible.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, that was a great session. And do you know when the next webinar will be? Do you have a date yet? Okay. And then there's the Montreal 26-27, and the information is on substance.io/consortium.
Yeah. So sign up for the mailing list for updates on future webinars and on other details.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. That was
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks for
Great
doing
to
this.
have you. Bye.